In this video, I'll be showing you how to make a new rainbow loom spring flower bracelet. So you can use either one or two looms. I'm just going to be showing it on one loom today. You want to have the pins set up in a staggered position so they are not in line with one another. And you want to have the arrows facing away from you. And you will need to choose your colors. I've chosen white and yellow for my flowers and then blue for the background. So if you're using one loom, you'll be able to put 3 flowers on. You will need 6 of the color bands for the petals and then 3 bands for each of the centers. And then for the background bands, using one loom, you will need 90 bands and then a few additional bands for your extension. Probably, I would say 8 or 10 additional. So we'll start by placing the flowers on the loom, and we're going to be using a circular shape to do that. You can see where the pins make a circle. So we're going to start by placing our first band. If you find that center row and you go into that second pin in, it's going to stretch across. We're going to skip this center pin and go to the next one. And then push this down. We're going to move over to this left row in a clockwise direction, and the band is going to stretch all the way across that center row. And now again we'll move to the next pin in that clockwise direction. And again, it's going to stretch all the way across that center row and down. And so that is what it's going to look like. You have your 3 bands that cross each other. And then we're going to put the colored bands on for the petals, and they will go all around all of these 6 pins on the outside. And we're going to either double or triple these. So in this video, I'm just going to double the bands, but I'll show you what it looks like. Here's a bracelet that I had done, and this is with the bands doubled, so you can see what the petals will look like. They're a little bit more spread out and open. And then this flower, the bands were tripled on the petals, so you can see that it's a tighter look. So as I said, I'm just going to double it for this bracelet. So in order to do that, you can put the band on your hook, twist, and then put it back on. And then we're just going to place it on this center pin right on top. And also, if you want, you can just use your fingers to double the band if you think that's easier. So I'll go to this next pin over. I'll just place it on top, twist, and then put it back on. So whichever you find easier to do, we're just going to work our way around. And then we're going to the center row again. Just going in a clockwise direction. Doesn't really matter what direction you go for this part. You just want to make sure that you get it on all of these outside pins. So that is the flower. We have one done. Now we're going to move down the loom. We're going to, in the center row, we're going to skip the next pin and then go to this next one, and we're going to repeat that pattern again. So we'll start with yellow for the center. It's going to stretch over the next pin and go to that second pin over. And then I'm going to go to the next pin in a clockwise direction. Again, it's going to stretch over that center row. And then finally going up to this next, and it's going to stretch over. And you want to push all of this down. And then we're going to add our petals again. So you're just going to be doubling or tripling these bands. If you have bands that are a little more stretchy, you might want to triple them. If you have tighter bands, you would be better off to double them. It just depends on the look that you want and what you have to work with. And then once again, we're going to that center row. We're skipping the next pin. So we're going to the next pin over, and that's where we're going to place our last flower. It's stretching over to the second pin up, moving up to the next pin in a clockwise direction, and then moving around again, and again just skipping that middle. And now finally I'm going to place all of the bands. I'm just going to work my way around here. And you can use any color that you want. I've just decided to do white for mine. You can choose to do all of the same color or different color flowers. Okay, so now we want to go back to the start. Again, you want the arrows facing away from you. And now we're going to put the background on, the main part of the bracelet. So for this part, what we're going to be doing is using 2 bands at once. So you just want to put them together. We're going to start in the center row and go up to the left. I'm going to take 2 more bands, and it's going to go diagonally to the right, and then I'm going to take 2 more bands and go straight forward. And so I'm just going to work my way up the loom. I'm always going to be using 2 bands at once, and I'm going to be going up all 3 of these rows, just moving forward. So I'll just work my way up this left side of the loom. And when you get to the pins where the petals are, just make sure to push them down. And as you're placing these on, you want to push them down, because you will need to add a cap band on top of this. And now when you get near the end here, you want to stop 1 pin short of the end, and you're going to place your last set of bands into that center row. And now we're going to go back down to the start, and now I'm just going to work my way up this right side of the loom. So again, I'm just taking 2 bands at once. And then always pushing it down. And again, when you get to the end, you want to stop 1 short from the end of your loom, and you want to place the last set of bands into that center pin. And then we'll go back to the start here, and now we're just going to repeat that same pattern, working our way up the center row, always doing 2 bands at once. And then for that last band, you're just going straight forward to the very end in that center row. And now what we're going to do is place the cap bands. So for this, I'm going to turn my loom around so that the arrows are now facing towards me. On the very end pin here in the center, we want to double this band. So I'm going to place it on my hook, twist, and put it back on. Going to place it right on the top, And now for all the rest of the bands, I'm going to be stretching from the one side of the loom to the other, and also up to make a triangle shape. So you want to make sure that these are pushed down so you have room to add. So you're going to put that triangle shape on. I'm just going to work my way up, making this same pattern. This is just going to connect all of the rows together so that your bracelet is nice and tight and there's no holes in it or gaps. And then when I get to the top here, I'm not going to do anything on this very end. I want to go back to the start here, so you still want the arrows to be facing towards you. And so now we want to start to loop the bands. So you're going to be starting on this center pin. And as you can see, there's a lot of bands on here. You have the 2 bands on top, which are the cap bands. Then underneath you have 2 bands that go straight forward. And then under that you have 2 bands that go to the left. And then on the very bottom you have 2 bands that go to the right. So we're going to be taking them off in that order that they were put on. So you're going to take your hook, reach down inside, push back on the top 2 bands, and you want to grab the next 2 bands. You're going to hold this cap band in place, pull this out, and move it forward. Now you're going to go back down through the same pin, push back on the 2 cap bands, grab the next 2 bands. They're going to come out and move to the left. And again, we're going back down through, grabbing the last 2 bands, and they're going to move to the right. And you want to push this down on the pins so they don't pop off the top. And now I'm just going to work my way up the left side of the loom. So I'm going down through the center. There's going to be 4 bands on top. I want to push back on those, grab the bottom 2. They're going to come out and move forward. Now on all of these pins there's going to be a cap band. So it's very important that you're going down through the center of the pin, pushing back on that top cap band. Now there's going to be 2 blue bands that you want to grab, or whatever your main color is. Pull them out and move forward. And now you have the 2 if you doubled, or 3 if you tripled band that is whatever color your petals are. Mine are white. And then at the very bottom I have this yellow. So what I want to do is, again, I'm going down through, making sure the cap band is behind my hook. I'm also going to push back on these 2 white bands and grab this bottom yellow. This also is going to come out and move forward. I'm going to repeat that for the next pin, pushing back on that cap band, grabbing the next 2 blue, moving them out and forward, and then going back down through, pushing back on the cap band and the 2 white bands, getting that yellow to come out and move forward. Now on this next one we only have the blue, so I'm pushing back on the cap band, grabbing the 2 blue and moving them up. Again, I just have the 2 blue on this next one. And now I'm starting at another flower here. So I'm going down through, push back on the cap band. I want the 2 blue to come out and move up. Again, I'm going back down through. Now I want to push back on the cap band and the white, getting that yellow to move forward. Now I'll repeat that again. I want the 2 blue, and then going back down through just the yellow and move forward. And now I'll have just blue, and then on this next one again I'll have just the blue. And now I'm up to my last flower, so I want the top two blue, and then going back down through, push back on the white and get that yellow out. And again the same thing, I have the two blue and then just the bottom yellow, and then finally I have the two blue on this end pin. They're going to come out and move to the center. And then I'm going to go back down to the start, and this time I'm going to be looming the right side here. I'm just going to repeat that exact same pattern again. So I'm going down through. There's going to be 4 blue bands on top. I'm pushing back and grabbing the bottom 2 blue. They're going to move out and forward. And next we'll start a flower. So I'm pushing back on that cap band, going to grab the top 2 blue, and then I'm going to go back down through, push back on the white, and just grab this yellow, and again move that forward. So I'm just going to do the same thing on the next one. I need the 2 blue. Make sure they both get on there. And now I'm going back down through and just grabbing this bottom yellow and moving it forward. Now I'll just have blue for the next. And then again, just the blue. And then here we're at another flower. So I want those top 2 blue bands. Make sure they both get on. And now I'm going back down through and getting the yellow. And then again the same thing. And now the yellow. So once you do it a few times, you should get the hang of it. Hopefully. It is a more advanced design, so I would not recommend it for first time loomers. And now here we're to a flower. So I'm getting the 2 blue. And make sure you're going down through the middle and getting the yellow here. And now the blue. And finally here we have one more yellow. And now these last 2 are going to come up through the top and into the middle. And then we're back to the start. Arrows facing towards you, and now we just have the center row left to do. Now this time we have the 2 blue bands again. I don't know if I can get a good angle here. We're going to push back on the top 2 blue, grab the next 2 blue and move them forward. You want to make sure this stays on. And now you're pushing back on the 2 white and getting just the yellow to come out and move forward. And now on this next pin you have just the 2 blue. There's a lot of yellow bands in the middle here, but you only want to worry about the blue. So you have to sort of get them separated. Here I only got 1 blue, but that's okay, so I'll just move the 1. Now I can go back down and get a better angle. Grab the other blue and move that forward. Now on this next one you're going to have the 2 blue. And now this is the trickiest part of the bracelet. You have a yellow on here that you need to get off, but the problem is that it is wrapped around the pin, so you can't just go in down through the center because where it's wrapped around is the back side of the pin. So what you have to do, and I'll see if I can get a good camera angle here, is you have to go down through, push back on the 2 white bands, but this time you're going to have to grab that yellow band from the side. So as you're pushing back on the top 2 bands, the white bands, you want to just hook that flower from the side. You're going to bring it out. So now it's totally loose on your hook, and you just want to bring it forward. So you can either straddle this pin, or you can put the 2 bands on the side of the pin. Either way, it doesn't matter, but you just have to get that yellow band to move forward. And now for this next one we have just the 2 blue that are going to come up through, and see, that's going to hold that yellow one in place that we just moved forward. Because if you don't do that, when you take it off your loom, that band isn't going to be hooked to anything and it's going to fall apart there. So now I'm to the next flower again. So I want the top 2 blue, and then go back down through and grab that bottom yellow, pushing back on the whites, and move it up. And now I have the 2 blue again. I want to come out from the middle, and as I said, these yellow bands are all around, so it's a little hard to get. So I'm going to try and get them both at once, which I just did here. But if you're having a hard time, you can just pull one at a time. And now from here, we're going to have this tricky one again. We want the top 2 blue to come forward. And now we're at the one here where we have to go down through the middle, push back on the 2 white, and we have to grab this yellow from the side. If you can see my hook, I'm putting it out to the side, grabbing this yellow. It's going to come up through, and now it's going to be totally loose here, and we have to move it forward. So again, you can either put these bands on the side and straddle this pin, or move them both on one side, but you just have to make sure it goes forward. And now I have just the 2 blue. And now again I'm back to a flower. So I have the 2 blue. And now I have the yellow. This one's not going to be too hard to grab. And now I have to go down through and work around all these yellow bands. If you can only get one, that's okay. And then I'm going to have to go back down through and get the second one. And move that forward. And now again I have this last one here. I want the 2 blue to come forward, and again I have to get this yellow. So I'm pushing back on the 2 white bands taking my hook out to the side and getting hold of this yellow. It's got to come out and move forward. And so now all that's left is to take it off of the loom, but instead of pulling it off from the top, what I'm going to do is start back at the bottom, and I'm just going to carefully take it off by putting my hook inside of each of the pins, because I don't want the petals to get bent all out of shape. So I'm just going to reach inside and carefully pull this off, especially where all of the petals are. Just going to take my time. So I'm just going to continue doing it like this. I will fast forward here. Now I'm going to leave the last couple of bands on the pins here, and what I'm going to do is reach my hook down through the center and push it out to the side. I'm going to take another band and I'm going to pull that up through. I'm going to twist my hook a little so it doesn't snag on any other bands, and I'm going to get that other loose end back on, and now I can carefully take the rest of these off. The one on the end is going to be the hardest because it has the most bands on there. And so this is what it's going to look like when it comes off the loom. It's a little bit messy and it needs some help. So what you're going to do is just make sure that the two white bands, or whatever color you have, are together in a circular shape. And you can just pull them a little bit towards the center. Try to get them as nice as possible so you have a nice flower shape, and then move on to your next one. You can see sometimes the bands get stuck down inside here, so we just have to make sure that you have them pulled out. If you had tripled your bands, you'll be dealing with 3 loops. Since we only doubled our bands, we have the 2 loops. And here we have the last one here to do. Make sure you're keeping the 2 loose ends on your hook here. While you're doing this part, you don't want them to come off. That would be not good. Okay, and so now I have fluffed it all up, and this is what it looks like. And now we need to add some bands for an extension. So what you want to do is take your loom and have the arrows facing away from you. And we're just going to work on the end here, and I'm just going to be placing the bands to the very next pin. And I would say I'm going to do about 5 bands total. So I already have 1 that's on the hook here. So now I'm going to do 4 more. So here I've done 3, and I'll get 1 more. And now I'm going to take this last part here that's on my hook, get these 2 bands on here, and I'm just going to stretch it out here. And now what I want to do is reach my hook inside, grab that band and pull back and get it on the pin. I'm going to do that again. Just going to keep working backwards here. And then I'm going to take my hook, put it down inside here, and pull this off of the loom. And then I'm going to take a clip. You can use a C clip or an S clip, whatever you have available. I have an S-clip here. I'm just going to hook that through. And now I'm going to take the other side of the bracelet, and there should be a circle right in the center where you can put your hook through. I'm going to take another band. I'm going to place that through and again hook it back on. So I have the two loose ends on my hook. I'm going to set this aside for now, and again I'm going to add some more bands for the other side of the extension. So again I'll do 4 more bands. Just putting them one right after the other. And then again I'm going to take these 2 loose ends from my hook and place them on here. I'm going to stretch this. And now I just want to reach inside, grab this band, release it, and move it back towards myself. Just keep repeating that. And then once again I'm going to put my hook inside, pull this off the loom. And now I want to take the other side of this clip and get these 2 loose ends hooked through there. And then here is my bracelet. You can see the flower pattern. And as I said, you can just play around with these to get them how you want them to look. And then here is another one that I made that I did show a little bit of in the earlier part of the video. This was using the length of 2 looms, and you can see I still did add a couple bands on for an extension. And in this one I alternated every other flower. So this one was made using the bands tripled, and then this one was doubled, and then again tripled and doubled and tripled and doubled. So it just gives a little bit of a variation. So this is the spring flower bracelet. I hope that you've enjoyed this video. You can always feel free to leave me comments on YouTube or Facebook, or send me pictures of things that you have made. I would love to see them. Thanks!